This is TWiT.
We also saw a story this week from Mr. Mark Gurman, I think following up on all of his Apple Car revelations. He was the one who broke the story that Apple Car project was dead after a decade, and he spilled some details about that. In Mark Gurman's latest newsletter over at Bloomberg, he wrote about how CarPlay is basically Apple's last gasp at the car industry. We have seen a more advanced form of CarPlay being shown off, something that takes over the front instrument cluster, basically all the screens at the front of your car. And Apple has not right now. That is something rolling out to like very expensive high-end luxury sedans. It's not coming to like a Corolla or something yet. But Apple really has no plan for what to do with CarPlay at this point. Like they are spreading it out there. They're not charging manufacturers to use CarPlay. They're not charging customers or anything. Gurman is basically hypothesizing here that CarPlay, that Apple will eventually have to charge for some element of CarPlay, maybe a CarPlay Plus for this higher end service. I'm just wondering, what do you guys think about this idea and about, the end of the Apple Car as well?
Well, I just started trying to buy a car recently and then backed out of buying the car.
Let's talk, Scott. Let's talk. Yeah. Because I'm doing a lot of research on that. Yeah.
It was very dramatic. But, I have a 2012 Honda CRV that just has regular Bluetooth connections. I'm so slow to upgrade to tech.
Yeah.
But like the new 2024 Honda Hybrid was the one I was going to get, and I'm probably still going to, but then the prices, I was dealing with dealers and it was ridiculous. And then I realized it could be gotten for less. And then
you probably want to lease an EV at this point. Like
I was so tempted.
It's such a good
I want to get an EV, but the problem for me is it's our primary car, and that's a whole other thing where it's like I have not built the infrastructure in to do that, and I'm probably a really slow adopter, and I feel very bad about not signing up for an EV. But I also feel like the tech is going to change a lot, and I like to live with a car for like 10 years, and maybe I should lease. That's a good point, and we should actually research that even more. But then the CarPlay, I like the idea of it. I don't want more of it. I kind of feel like the way I feel about it is like, I love that it's there. It's so much better. If it took over the rest of the car, I think I'd freak out. And I don't like what cars do with software at all, but I do like that the cars have some element to themselves that's separate from that. And I would be fine paying a service for CarPlay if it maybe did more. I don't know if it meant it would go away, but and I didn't feel any interest in the Apple Car thing. Although when someone was talking to me about like Teslas, which I would not buy, they were talking about it's so much easier to buy one, and that you're not dealing with this let me check with my manager, and the prices all seem like they're in some gray zone, and that drove me crazy. And, I felt like
car dealers are the worst, the scourge of humanity.
Yeah, it was. And I felt like
you buy through Costco. I mean, I don't need to promote. They're not a sponsor, not promoting the brand. I have no affiliation with them. Even if I live in Washington State, the home of Costco, you buy from Costco, and they just, I've done this before, and they're just like, it costs this much. And you go to the dealer, they're like, okay. And that's the entire transaction. So I don't know if it's still that good, but a proud 2014 Honda Fit owner here, Scott. So I'm in your camp with outdated car.
I've heard good things about that process. Absolutely. By the way, I have to say I'm weirdly a fan of Carvana, even though that company has been kind of messy. I have bought 2 cars over Carvana and have done trade-ins and stuff, and there have been some issues. Like the latest one, I got a Volvo. Because again, I also don't have the infrastructure or budget for an EV at this point. But it came with bad brakes. I called them. I was like, "Hey, these brakes are rusted." And they're like,
"Oh my God,
new brakes!"
Wow.
Just because it's a crazy startup. So they're like, okay, we'll just replace that. And then dealer would, I don't know if a dealer would do much about that issue. Yeah.
I'm afraid that I just keep looking. I have a 2014 Dodge Caravan, and it has it has an aux input.
Oh boy.
It's broken. So I have to put the aux into it and then pull it to the side and wrap it around something so that it won't go back to the radio. And then I have this little, and I have the Peak Design makes the case that I have on this phone, and they make a little thing that hooks onto the vent, latches onto the vent, and then I just snap this onto the front, and I have a map and I have music, and I am fine.
That's kind of all you need.
And I have to admit, my wife has a newer Pilot, a Honda Pilot, and every time I get into it, I'm like, oh, how do I get this thing to sync up and get the Apple thing to work? Because it's, it's set up for her phone, and then there's too many phones already connected to it, and then I have to do this thing. I'm like, mine just works. I just plug it in. I plug in the USB-C on the bottom. I got a souped up USB-C to aux out, so I got more audio power into the car because it was a little too quiet. And so those are the little things that I've done. And I have to admit, I keep on thinking, wow, I really like that whole CarPlay, but I kind of like my phone doesn't really work if you call me in the car, which I kind of like, and so
That's
so
true. That's true.
It's been, and the problem is for both my wife and I, we both have cars now that are out. We got loans for them, and they've been paid off since COVID. And I look at the probably $1,000 to $1,500 a month that I'm not paying for those cars. And I don't drive very much anymore. I mean, I'm lucky to get to the garage, let alone go out most days. And so I just, I kind of love the fact that I'm not paying for it. And I just find that a lot of people, like, I remember growing up thinking that it was great to get a license so I could drive legally. I grew up on a farm, so I've been driving for a long time. But being able to drive like actually on the highway legally was really exciting. And my kids, there's not a lot of pressure. They're just not that interested. And the reason, what's interesting is they'll say, well, then I can't be interacting with other people on my phone if I'm driving. And that is just annihilating their interest in their friends. Their interest in driving is because of their phone. It's because, they don't want to do it illegally. They don't want to be like obviously texting and driving, but that means they don't want to. It doesn't mean that they don't want to text. It means they don't want to drive.
And also, you have enough ways to easily get around. Like if you're in a city with like decent public transportation, that's fine. But everyone's just Ubering and Lifting everywhere now too. So.
Or just working from home.
Too.
Or just working from home.
I have going anywhere. What's sometimes called a numtot. It's new urban memes for transit-oriented teens.
Ooh.
Although my teen's about to turn 20. He's transit obsessed. He's going to school in Boston now. He's undergrad in Boston, and
nice.
He has a license. He may have to drive. He's a music ed major, so he's going to teach in who knows what city and whatever. But he is prioritizing his life around transit because he does not want to have to contribute to sprawl. He is actually very socially minded things. But I'll tell you, here's the most amazing thing. So Alex, Scott, and I think Devindra, you said you bought 2 cars in the recent past. Alex, Scott, and I are like the least demographic people in our age groups in America. From like, I got a 2012, I got a 2014, my Dodge King. It's amazing.
Yeah. I guess I'm in a weird place right now because I have much younger kids than you guys, it sounds like. So I have a 5-year-old and I have a 2-year-old. So my life is the daycare drive in the morning and the daycare pickup in the afternoon and soon school and everything. So I've been like very much researching family cars for a while. So my brain has just been here. I will say I originally had a 2017 RAV4 hybrid, and that didn't have CarPlay. Then I swapped over to a Volvo XC90 that does have CarPlay, and CarPlay just makes all the difference because on the cars without it, if you're doing like aux audio or something, then you can't get map audio. You can't get map directions if you're listening to the radio. So
if you're listening to radio,
yes.
Which I don't want. Like usually, like my thing is
you have to flip it to
speaker
mode on the phone.
I'm always like, do not interrupt my music. Like that's what I like is that I'm listening to music and I can go over to the map and see where I'm supposed to go. But I'm like, and I don't. Admittedly, again, I don't travel a lot of places where I need the map that often because I don't go very many places anymore. And I think that I am fascinated by the impact that COVID had in the sense that pre-COVID, I was traveling 250,000 miles a year. And post-COVID, I drive maybe 3,000 miles a year. So it's
you and I are hybrid customers, like the plug-in hybrid. That's I was like, I want to get an EV next car. We just got our electrical rewired 2 years ago to get a heat pump, like all the exciting stuff, right? I'm like, I could get an EV port. And then I'm like, well, I don't think we're the right. I drive 20 miles to 30 miles a week. So
plug-in hybrid.
Maybe I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Plug-in
I should also mention this. I did briefly have a plug-in hybrid and I got screwed over because it was a Chrysler. And I realized, I was like, I can trust an American car at this point. Everybody loves the Chrysler Pacifica. 3 weeks after I bought it, basically banned a global recall on that specific model because it could catch fire. And Chrysler spent like 9 months not doing anything, like not giving us updates, like not telling us like how it would be fixed. So I kind of just was like, I cannot just be driving this thing with my kid. So I kind of I bit the bullet and I kind of like took the cost of like swapping over to that Volvo. So it was not the best decision, but it was because of Chrysler's crummy engineering. But otherwise, plug-in hybrids are great. Like you can do.
But I also think that I think that Apple also had to look at the fact that the trend of how people use their cars is changing dramatically.
Oh, yeah.
And that if you're not going to release something until 2026, 2027 and hope that it turns into a real business by 2030, that's a whole different world from where we are now, because we're seeing more people working from home, more people wanting to not have to drive very, very far. The next generation, cars are not their identity. They're not their identity. You know, like and I admit, for me, it was never my identity. I've never bought a new car. I've always bought generally old BMWs, but then my last one died and I had the Caravan as it's like a Caravan's kind of like a truck.
But your cars became old at 250,000 miles a year. Your cars were old in a year. So that's the other thing.
Oh, no. I was flying those.
I'm sorry. I was like, how did you drive? Okay. Some people do drive a lot.
Flying a 250,000 miles a year. Like I was definitely not driving. If I have to drive into San Francisco, I'm like, I'm like 35 minutes from downtown San Francisco, and you go, you
might as well just lift it. You might as well just taxi in, because then at least you could still do stuff on your computer. Yeah.
Bart.
Well, I know.
I'm in Marin, where we spent a century resisting any direct connection to what the Marinites would call the riffraff. You know, I just rode the Smart Network, the Smart train which is in Sonoma, which takes you between several cities barely in lovely Sonoma and only runs part of the day. It's a big step up, though. Apparently. Drops you off in Larkspur, where you're still a mile from the you have to walk, especially when it's raining or really hot, you have to walk from the Larkspur drop off on Smart all the way over. Like they could have just run that, if they had run that train and I think that they did this I think somebody did this on purpose. If they had run that train all the way up to where the ferries are, which are an amazing experience. Which are
great, right?
Great. It's such a great thing to do. If they had just run that to the place where I don't have to walk for 20 minutes to get to them, I would never drive to San Francisco again. I would be taking the Smart all the time, I'd go into San Francisco all the time because I can get in. With the way that it's set up, it's like, no.
I don't want to turn it into a transit podcast, but when I flew in the Santa Rosa airport, which is great, and Smart terminates at the Santa Rosa airport a mile from the airport, and until last summer there was no shuttle or anything. Now they run a shuttle with a private company. Had a lovely conversation with the driver. It was a private shuttle, practically nobody on the bus either way, but I was like the only one taking was a train for me. But you're like, these are anyway.
Not so smart.
These are what keep people in cars, is the intermodal transportation nodes are missing.
Yeah.
That's the call.
I'm an NJ transit person. So, for me, I'm lucky to walk. Lucky to be walking distance to the NJ Transit, and then take that into New York City, where I'm not there that many times a week since the pandemic. Or the ongoing pandemic, or whatever, whatever nether zone we're in now. But basically this phase. And then, so I don't drive a lot. And so I agree, I'm not identified by car. I kind of can't stand cars. And I feel like they're just a thing. I do relate to David Cronenberg and Crash, and the idea of just I look at highways and I'm just I don't really comprehend the existence of this in the world. I'm not kind of in love with it. And then I go, okay, well, I need one. But then I want to stick with one for a while. And I agree, I'm paid off on it. So I don't want to deal with any of that all over again.
It's paying off a car. I hadn't had that happen in a long time. Yeah. And when you have two paid off cars, it is like heroin. You're like, oh, I don't want to break it down, because you're like, all that extra money that I'm not spending on this.
And the insurance, when you buy the new car, they give you the new insurance bill.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I feel so happy to be clear of that. I started to get to the point where the car had been it started to have a few things wrong with it, and the repairs were starting to mount up. So and that was when friends had said to me, okay, well, this is the time that you should be putting money into a new car that's not that one. And so we started looking, but it just made me feel squeamish. And then I want to stick with that car for a long time. It goes back to my feeling on CarPlay, which is I'm still curious about how this tech lasts over 10 years. Yeah. And then
it goes with your phone is the thing. The current new CarPlay thing, the infotainment powered CarPlay, is powered by your phone. It is not built into the car like Android Automotive is. So that's the key. It's as fast as your phone is, technically.
Yeah. But then at the same time, it would be kind of nice in some idealistic world. I kind of feel like if if you get to the point where like you want to upgrade your car but not get a new car, like have that element be modular, you know, like something that like, you know, it's weird to me how many parts of the car are not modular, you know, that are like, you know, you only get these things if you get a new car. Like I just go, I kind of don't, I understand, but I feel like maybe can that CarPlay thing be something that you could, it's a slippery slope. Because I was going to say, as I'm saying this, I go, well, if that's something you could upgrade, then like Apple and others are going to want to have a new one every, you know, couple of years. And then
if they want you to pay for it, maybe that is going to be the thing. Like maybe
I think for Apple, the CarPlay thing, I don't know if they'll make someone pay for it because I think that a lot of it is just making sure that Apple users have a good experience when they're in the car.
Yes.
I think that's Apple's biggest thing is just to make sure that they're not left out, that they don't feel like, oh, I can't connect, you know, because the car is still something a lot of people use. And again, as someone who again, my wife, I connected, I actually find the CarPlay to be fine. Like it's great to have it in the car and it shows up on the little Honda screen.
You get controls from your steering wheel. And that is the key, like being able to like do things really well there. Yeah.
You know what Apple's going to do, though? I will tell you, I'm going to predict this, and I believe I will be correct, is Apple isn't going to charge you for CarPlay. Apple is going to charge you for a package of emergency and assistance services.
Yes.
Because they have the satellite SOS via, starting with the iPhone 14. They said they wouldn't charge for a year, then they extended it. And then they added emergency roadside SOS with, you have to have a certain AAA service in the US, so forth. They're so clearly going to have like a $20 a month, $30 a month thing that's going to feature those two things plus whatever. And you have to have a newer phone, which gives you the incentive if you're one or two generations behind. And then you will be paying them $300 or $400 a month. Maybe it'll be bundled with AAA in some way. And you'll be like, this is great. I love it. I'm never lost. I'm not on a weird rural road because my phone or my car is now tied in with emergency SOS or whatever. They will sell, I want to say, they'll sell fear
I totally
just like they did with the satellite service.
I will say, as someone who once was helped by AAA on the 5, which by the way, everything's way bigger than you think it is when you're in the car, when you're standing outside the car.
Oh my God.
Where AAA helped me, you know, in the middle of nowhere on the 5, worth every penny. So they try to scare you, but the one thing is that I barely ever use it. And I remember that earlier that year, I thought, should I update this? Like I haven't used AAA in I don't remember how many years.
Yeah.
Yes.
My wife was stuck at a ski area with the kids. My wife was stuck at a ski area with the kids where she'd driven from Seattle, not that far away, but a good 100 miles to go tubing. The clutch dies. We had a manual transmission. She calls AAA and they said, your plan doesn't include extended whatever. Would you like that? And we paid $30 more and they drove 200 miles for nothing. And we said, we will never not have. But the fear part is Apple really marketed emergency SOS as and I don't think unreasonably, because it is a fear. We do fear about people do take bigger chances. They are in places where there isn't coverage. And I think emergency SOS and emergency roadside assistance.
I think it's already saved lives. Like there are already stories of people whose lives have been saved while they've been hiking and stuff. So I think what you're saying,
be the
Glenn,
subscription service.
It's like the fall detection and the,
they'll package, it'll be
AFib and all these
things. It'll be CarPlay Plus will be, you have the right phone model and it's going to do all of these extra things and it will be integrated into the car as well as into your phone. So you get the same services as long as you're carrying your phone with you. And then everybody in the family needs to have an iPhone 14 or later.
That's how it goes.
Peace of mind package. Exactly.
Peace of mind plus.
I mean, all the car manufacturers already make you basically pay extra for, remote security and remote support stuff. So Volvo has like a similar thing. Yeah.
That's also greatly affected my willingness to upgrade to a car. Like I feel like I'm getting into a relationship with the car. Like right now I own cars that don't talk back to the manufacturer, that do the thing that they need to do, that get me from one place to the other. And I know I'm being a bit of a Luddite, but man, like the idea that I'm now going to get hosed into, like I'm going to get pulled into like this subscription plan to run my car. Like they're
going a little crazy with the subscription plans and like how they can enable and disable features. It's the worst thing.
Or sell your data to the Lexus Nexus data situation where people didn't realize by approving one thing in the fine print they'd actually agreed to send all of their acceleration and hard braking and speeding information, which has affected their insurance. I mean, that is the kind of trust you want to cultivate with your customers for a lifelong relationship as a car company.
Just awful. I mean, crazy. Real quick, we should talk about so Apple's whole, it seems like from the get-go, the plan for the Apple Car a decade ago was kind of I guess like it was set up for failure because they were building up for true self-driving when everybody was chasing true self-driving, and we've basically realized that problem is harder to solve than everybody ever thought. Yeah.
If you at the same time you were designing a headset that would allow you to watch movies,
yes,
a self-driving car,
yes,
really useful. Like the two of them coming together. If they had if they had passed if the receiver had been there when they threw the ball a long time ago, it would have been great.
Would have been perfect. I mean,
listen, in the car, you just go into Neverland and you get to LA. Like that's a
windscreen could have been a Vision Pro. You don't even need
no,
but just
that's
that you
would have
been
kids to use them.
They wanted to get you away from like you don't have a steering wheel, you don't have anything else. You sit in this little minivan that is, which to me was a dream, is still a dream. Is that I have a little mini apartment that's that I can go into and I can like work a little bit and I can hang out a little bit and it's just moving me from one place to the other is the perfect car. It's just that's the last mile is super hard, and that's the challenge.
Yeah. So the early reports were that this would be a steering wheel-less vehicle, just kind of a pod you hop in and take you places. Waymo. Yeah. With pure self-driving, the concepts that Gurman reported on made it sound almost like a VW Bug, or not Bug, the minibus.
The bus,
so like a pod-shaped thing. Over at Engadget, Carissa Bell, our reporter, just like fed a lot of the design prompts into an AI image thing, and it came up with like this very cute, bespoke Apple-looking thing. That was the plan. Clearly, that didn't go anywhere because nobody has fully cracked self-driving, no matter what Elon Musk calls it in Teslas. But the other problem is that I do feel like Tesla built the Apple car, unfortunately. Like Tesla did the thing that disrupted the car industry, made you give you a different way to buy it compared to everybody else, like put in the new tech that wasn't really anywhere else yet. Tesla did it. So now the idea of Apple doing a plain old electric car just seems redundant.
Well, and I think
that's the ultimate thing. Yeah.
Again, I think that the real problem is that the last mile is really hard. Like the streets and people and streets, like that is like super complicated. And it is, it's the typical problem where you end up spreading too little jam over too much bread. It just doesn't, it's never going to turn out. And so the problem is that it gets that they're trying to cover the last mile. Whereas if you said all the highways, the companies are going to put all the billions of dollars that they've been trying to get working into highway technology that allows the cars to really understand what's going on and gives them a bunch of telemetry and does all the things where you're going to drive when you get off the highway. But when you're on the highway, which is where we need it the most, it's going to do all the work for you. And it's super safe and it understands what those things are because it trying to figure out how to drive the back road in Pennsylvania, where I grew up, would be impossible. Like not counting the deer, and so the thing is that solving that problem super hard. Solving every highway more than 3 lanes or more, expensive, but doable.
Hey, thank you for watching this little snippet from our big show, the News Roundtable This Week in Tech. I'm Leo Laporte. Each week we cover the week's tech news, in-depth analysis, but it's also fun and engaging. You'll find it at twit.tv along with all of our shows. And if you want more, just hit the subscribe button and we'll be sure to bring you a lot more great content. Thanks for listening.